Dan and Amy, and Donald Trump announced a couple of more important selections to his cabinet and one additional executive post, really. Small Business Administration had Linda McMahon.
Nice.
She of WWE.
She and her husband
infamy.
founded it, right?
Yeah, Vince. And Linda McMahon ran for U.S. Senate in Connecticut a couple times, lost. Tough state.
Yeah, Donald Trump contributed both times to her campaign.
And then General John Kelly over Chris Kobach, the state of Kansas Secretary of State. General Kelly for head of Department of Homeland Security. He lost a son in service to our nation in Afghanistan, 4-star retired Marine general. And pretty tough on immigration, but not as controversial, I think, as Chris Kobach. And we'll talk to David Ferdoso at the top of the 8 o'clock hour.
Oh, Chris Ferdoso, he had the plan in his hand when he was walking in
Yes,
to meet Donald Trump,
correct.
and everybody zoomed in on it.
Right, and we'll talk to Ferdoso from the Washington Examiner about the calculus behind that choice for Homeland Security. And then the choice that has the junk science addicted left having a core meltdown. That's the choice of Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt to head up EPA, one of the hallowed federal government agencies, at least in the minds of the left. And
you know what his nickname is? Scott Polluter.
They need to workshop that.
Okay.
That doesn't really work. But for more on this nomination and the implication, we're pleased to be joined by Sterling Burnett. He is a research fellow on the environment and energy policy for the Heartland Institute. Sterling, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good to be on. Thanks for having me.
So now why would Donald Trump nominate someone to head EPA who is opposed to clean air and clean water?
Well, of course he wouldn't. No one, I don't know of anyone who's opposed to clean air and clean water who doesn't want the environment to be better for their children in the next generation than they exist. Than they benefit from themselves. But Scott Pruitt is in line with Donald Trump's view that the EPA has gone well beyond the bounds set by law for it, especially under the Obama administration, that it ignores rulings set down by the Supreme Court, and that it is tampering with policies and areas of policy that are left that under the Constitution are left to the states, not the federal government. And he has fought the Obama administration and other administrations in court over several regulations and rules, and this is in keeping with Trump's view that the EPA is overreached and it's time to rein it back. Trump, throughout his entire campaign has said we're going to make America great again, and one of the ways of doing that is reducing regulations that harm business for no environmental benefit. And that's precisely what Scott Pruitt has been fighting as Attorney General of the United States. As Attorney General for Oklahoma.
So how is this going to work? Because he's repeatedly sued the EPA, to roll back environmental regulations. So what happens now?
Well, there's it's not just he's repeatedly sued him. He's still in court, suing him actively now. He has several lawsuits still pending against the federal EPA. Well, should he be approved by the Senate, and I expect that to happen, whoever his successor is will take over the lawsuits. They're not going to go away, except they could. He could say, if he does what I believe he should do, and what I think Trump hopes that he will do, he can either withdraw the regulations that have been offered that are being sued, being challenged by the states, because it's not just Scott Pruitt, let's be clear. Over half the states in the nation are challenging the Clean Power Plan.
Right.
The Supreme Court put a stay on it for the first time ever. Not even a single court had heard it, and the court stayed it because they expected it to be overturned. That's how bad it was. The large United States rule, multiple states, dozens of states have sued to block the large United States rule. So he's just one of the attorney generals doing that, but he's a lead attorney general. And I think what will happen is he will either withdraw his regulations or ask the agency to revise them. in line with what the lawsuits are demanding, or he can simply choose not to defend those regulations in court.
Well, yeah.
In which case, the court would only hear one side of the argument, and you have little leeway to do anything but find the regulations were unfit.
Right, and it's interesting. I mean, how quickly the narrative on this particular issue changed from Al Gore meeting with Ivanka and President-elect Trump at Trump Tower the other day, and then Scott Pruitt announced on Wednesday. So certainly that meeting with Al Gore didn't influence Donald Trump's decision in terms of which way to go for EPA. And so it, of course, brings in the overriding issue for the left, which is climate change and the assertion that, Scott Pruitt, like everybody who doesn't subscribe to carbon taxes and the wholesale environmental extremism of the left, that he is a neo-Luddite, that he is a troglodyte, that he is someone who does not subscribe to the settled science as it pertains to the existential threat that climate change presents to our planet. And that's why he is a danger to the planet, as Obama senior advisor Dan Pfeiffer termed him.
Yeah, well, rhetoric is cheap. So the Obama administration can make all these claims that it wants. In the end, the EPA administrator is not charged with making policy. It's not charged with making executive decisions about which direction the country should take and what Congress and the president should do. It's charged with carrying out the laws enacted by Congress. And there's no law enacted by Congress that says we should be regulating carbon dioxide emissions. Every EPA, up till Obama's EPA, when asked whether they had the authority and power to regulate carbon dioxide emissions, said no. And they said, and even if we have that authority, which we don't, we wouldn't do it because it's not toxic to human health. And any risks from climate change are minimal, distant, and there's nothing the United States can do to prevent them. Most of the emissions are coming from developing countries at this stage. Our emissions have been declining despite no laws restricting emissions. That's what every presidential administration's EPA has said up until Obama. He changed that. So basically, I think what you'll see with Scott Pruitt is to some extent a return to the status quo, an EPA which says we're going to ask what the law says first, not what's good for our budget, what gives us more power, regardless of what the law says, because that's what the EPA has been doing.
So Pruitt does want to protect the environment, but he also wants freedoms for American businesses, right?
Oh, that's right. The Constitution's first. And the Constitution says everything not specifically delegated to the federal government is left to the states. And that's what he's been fighting for, is states' authority against federal overreach. And that is what President-elect Trump has said needs to occur as well. So, I think that Pruitt fits hand in glove with what during the election campaign, President-elect Trump said he expected from the EPA, and in line with those views, also other agencies, and you're looking at those appointments, and I think you're seeing agencies that will be much more humble, that will examine and see what the impact of these rules will be on freedom and on the economy, because that has been President-elect Trump's main focus. All right. Reducing regulations that harm the economy, that cut jobs, that make us less competitive with foreign countries.
All right. I think I still need to become a vegetarian, though, to reduce my personal carbon footprint, just to be on the safe side. He is Sterling Bennett. He's a research fellow on environment and energy policy for the Heartland Institute, heartland.org. Sterling, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.